So I'm going to start with a quick introduction and opening to the session, and then we'll jump right into it. If some people here are new, my name is Klil. I probably sent you some kind of invitation or email at some point or another. Today, though, there are a lot of other Klils, and I'm Juno Community. And we're in this very exciting session panel from learning to capability. We really want to talk about the human and AI connection and how it actually changes performance. And I'm very lucky to have such an incredible panel of speakers with us, a very powerful women panel. Before we start, just a short introduction to the community. So the Learning Table community is the one that I'm leading. This is part of our offerings to our members. So if you haven't been part of the community activity before, we're a community for L&D, HR, talent development, enablement leaders, basically anyone whose role is to help us support the organization to perform best. We have online webinars and workshops. Hey, you're one of them now. We have hubs meeting all over the world. Not Paris yet, though. We need to get there. Programs of professional matchmaking to support each other in the community, and exclusive dinner events. So I hope to see each and every one of you in any one of those. And this lovely community is part of Juno Journey. So as the host, I will just ask for 4 minutes, tops, just to tell you a bit about who we are, and then we'll jump right into the panel. And I basically has a lot to do with the subject we're talking about. So as a specific company who's basically a vendor trying to help companies move from learning to workforce readiness, I do want to tell you in a few words how we do it. I'll probably won't be the first one to tell you that the world is changing faster than our organizations can really execute. And I think that the real question is, where are we right now in supporting our employees with what they really need in this unbelievable change? And let's just talk a little bit about our employees and what they're going through. So just a few stats. Think about this. The average skill tenure reduced dramatically from years to basically nothing, which means that we're constantly needing to upskill and reskill almost every day. The number of business applications we're now using just keeps on growing, and we want the business to get the most value out of them. So that means a lot of application training. And lastly, we ourselves as companies, as product, we're able to deliver much faster, which basically means the internal knowledge that our people need keeps changing continuously, which all sums up to basically our people need our help. But where most L&D teams right now kind of still stuck in the operational phase rather than really being able to support their people in preparing the workforce readiness. Things like, can you send me this report? Can you update this onboarding? Can you make this content more engaging, and more and more? And we all know that's not workforce readiness. And that's exactly where our platform steps in. So Juno supports hundreds of companies with our workforce readiness efforts in the humane era, human and AI. Yes, it's cool. We basically connect human strategy with automated execution, everything orchestrated by Juno. Juno understands your company focus, the department goals, and employee capabilities. And she doesn't do the work herself. She does it with a team of agents. Each and every one of them focuses on a specific aspect of your employee workforce readiness, from onboarding to management enablement, compliance, knowledge enablement, priority-driven upskilling, and career management. So we do that with two main models. The Juno Training, which is an AI-powered LMS that basically automates all of the back-end administrative work that really takes care of content creation, real-time knowledge grabbing, verifying training understanding, and doing all the automation of all the workflows according to the company priorities. And on the other side, we have Juno Growth, which is a goal-driven LXP, which turns performance goals into personalized development plans that creates career journeys and automating learning budget management. Okay, so I'm on 2 minutes. The other 1.5 minutes, sorry, I do want to show you in a glimpse how our agents actually do what I'm saying we do. I'm going to start with Jaden, who basically turns subject matter experts into content developers, because we don't want to be the bottleneck, right? In the position where we're a bottleneck of the entire content flow in the company. We just spoke about in the beginning how much training and knowledge needs to be created and updated constantly. But we also want to control the agents who give them the guidance and instructions on how to produce content to match the company culture. So when L&D teams are overwhelmed with repetitive content creation for every department, and at the same time SMEs are basically struggling to create content, that's where we come in. So Jaden, in a nutshell, I'll make sure it doesn't make a noise. Yes. So Jaden guides, SMEs step by step, asking the right questions and applying the company's context and training goals so they can quickly create content that's basically 90% ready. Then L&D can step in to review, adjust, and finalize, focusing on quality and orchestration, not starting from scratch. Given the right guidance within minutes, Jaden can basically give you a ready-to-use onboarding, compliance, enablement, product update, any type of training that's really ready to close any gap needed to ensure your workforce is future ready. Everything automated, adjustable, and measurable, reducing the heavy lifting from your hands. One last agent I want to show you is Gemma. While AI agents can do a lot of things for us, most of them are still not connected to our company's data and internal tools, which basically means they're not dynamic and they need our manual attention. They're not connected to our evolving business goals. And when it comes to upskilling and optimizing the knowledge of our people, we should have what they should have when they need it to impact performance and to create success. That's why we created Gemma, our growth agent. She basically ties your company personalization, to building actionable development plans for your workforce. Very shortly, how she does it without music. So based on the company business goals set up in the system, your tools, and the employee data, Gemma offers critical personalized performance goals for each employee to support the business based on who they are. She takes into consideration the time frame they have and their favorite methods of learning and practicing. And then she basically builds a step-by-step actionable plan with tasks and content we give you from 100 content providers without the need for any prepaid subscription to support upskilling, reskilling, and closing any gaps anyone has. In addition, Gemma also finds the best mentors to partner with, making sure employees are set up for success at scale. And that's everything I wanted to show you. I want to thank you for listening to me. And I know now you really want to go into the good, juicy part. So without further ado, we're going to start with our panel. And I'm basically going to give the keys to our moderator, to Malvika Jetmalani, who is part of our Chicago hub and one of the most inspiring women I met so far, who collected this group of incredible speakers. I'm very excited to hear. So Malvika, take it away. I'm going to stop sharing, don't worry.
Thank you, Clill, and hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to our session co-hosted by Juno Journey and Women Shaping AI. I'm Malvika. I'm based in Chicago. I see many other Chicagoans here as well. I'm the founder of Activist Group, which is a human capital advisory firm, and I'm also the founder of Women Shaping AI, which is a community where women from all walks of life come together to learn about AI together. So today's topic, as Clill mentioned, is from learning to capability, how human and AI systems actually change performance. Now, we know that most organizations have more learning content than ever before, as Clill already pointed out, but still leaders are frustrated that performance isn't changing fast enough, and business outcomes are not materializing fast enough. So today's conversation is about why learning is not the same as capability, how human and AI systems actually shift performance when designed intentionally. And so some of the themes that you might hear us cover in this conversation are they will center around things like the shift from content consumption to capability building, or AI as an amplifier and not just a shortcut kind of cost-cutting tool, or capability as a system of skills, workflows, feedback, incentives, and leadership clarity. So this is going to be more of a conversation about leadership and operating model, not necessarily a conversation about specific tools. And I'm excited that we get to have this conversation with our esteemed panelists, all of whom are founding members of the Women Shaping AI community and are supporting our mission of equipping women with the knowledge, networks, and access to thrive in the AI era. So before we dive in, panelists, please introduce yourselves. Michelle, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Shweta and then Rachel.
Great. Thank you so much, Malvika and Khalil, for setting everything up today. I'm really excited for this discussion. There is just so much to dive into. I'm Michelle Corday, and I save companies money by leading strategic HR transformation and enablement. So I develop strategies and lead teams that streamline HR's daily operations through technology, automation, and process improvement. Basically, instead of being buried in administrative work, HR teams can focus on strategic, value-added activities like leadership development, learning, performance, DEI, all the good stuff that helps an organization achieve its goals.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you, Malvika and Khalil, for inviting me to this conversation with amazing Michelle and Rachel in the mix. My name is Shweta, and I am the co-founder of Yenza 3, and we are a transformation consulting organization focused on AI transformation specifically for different functional areas. And personally, I work at the intersection of AI, skills intelligence, and organizational performance. And what I've noticed over the years is that performance doesn't change because we've added more content or tools. Through my lived experience, I've observed that it changes when organizations are courageous and brave enough to think about redesigning how capability is built, deployed, and reinforced inside the real work. So that's the lens that I'll be bringing to today's conversation. Thanks again for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thanks everyone for having me. It's exciting to start the day like this. My name is Rachel Koster. I'm co-founder and CEO at a company called Virtual Sapiens. We've been around for about 5 years. We are an AI role play and practice platform. So we actually are kind of in the mix of trying to help organizations and enterprises leverage our platform to drive actual behavior change. That's kind of the whole purpose of doing building Virtual Sapiens, was to figure out how AI can sit at the intersection of human-led facilitation and training, and then be the amplifier that turns maybe a one-time workshop into real sustained behavior change. For anyone who is familiar with workshop-based trainings, it's always been a frustration that the skills just don't translate and don't leave that very fun experiential time together. And so we sit at that skills integration space. So excited to share some of the more concrete examples of what has worked and what has not worked.
Wonderful. Well, welcome. I can already tell this is going to be a great conversation, so let's jump right in. We're not going to waste any time. And for those of you who are listening, as we discuss these various topics and questions with the panel, please share your thoughts, questions, and comments in the chat as well, so we can all learn from each other. So panel, my first question to you, whoever wants to take it, is when you hear organizations say, we're investing heavily in AI-powered learning, what do you actually see breaking down between that learning and between real performance and business outcomes?
I'd be happy to jump in. I think in my experience, the most important component of successful AI initiatives is the foundation. And that really starts with tying AI to real business outcomes. So your learning program has to be tailored to support employees and leaders in whatever specific business goal they're trying to achieve. And be a better leader is not a business goal, right? So a business goal has to have a measurable outcome. Maybe it's increasing revenue by 10% or reducing time to hire by 5 business days. And once those goals are in place, AI can help identify the skills that an individual needs in order to achieve those goals. And that will then inform the learning plan that AI has the power to customize for each person within your organization. But without a specific measurable goal to aim for, learning may or may not be moving the needle in terms of performance, and the outcomes will be a lot harder to measure.
And I will add to what Michelle is talking about, that if we treat learning as an episodic event, that, hey, AI is a concept and we're going to teach fundamentals of AI, talk about the technology behind it, and not close the imagination gap for people who have to integrate and adopt AI into their daily workflows, then it's going to be just theoretical knowledge. And in order for that transfer of learning to happen, learning has to be very personalized and contextualized to the problem or the mission or the goal, like Michelle said, that this one person or a team of individuals are trying to accomplish together.
Yeah, I think the other thing that this actually brings up early, which I'm glad about, is there have been issues with learning and ensuring that learning pathways turn into real sustained behavior change that can be measured and that then impact like real established KPIs. That has been a problem in learning for like decades. It's right, like a lot of it oftentimes feels like a check the box manager training, or okay, we all went through this, that's great, we did it, done, and now we kind of go back to our daily lives and our workflows. And so now that AI is on the scene, I think sometimes it's very easy for people to think that AI is going to like magically solve for this problem that didn't also just show up yesterday. I think that it would be really interesting to discuss like some of the ways that AI can really be used to address some of these gaps between when the learning happens and actual behavior change. But I think it's important to acknowledge that like these problems have existed for like many, many years, right? It's always been one of the challenges of learning in particular, and other parts of the organization as well.
Yes, Rachel, you make a great point, and it's a great segue into talking about your background, because you've spent your career translating human performance into measurable, buildable skills. So why doesn't traditional learning, even when it's AI enabled, automatically translate to capability? What are we missing there?
Well, I think so. Just a little bit on my background, because it's relevant. I used to be a professional ballet dancer. And it's always interesting to me to think back on my time as a dancer, where we would spend, for 1 hour of performance, we would spend thousands of hours in rehearsal. And I find that what has been lacking in the past has been, okay, you get exposed to these new concepts, you get exposed to this new curriculum, and you go through it, and you read all the content, and maybe you go through a quiz and you've done your knowledge check, and that's great. But what I feel we've been missing is a space to actually integrate and practice and develop new behaviors. And none of that can be rushed, right? You actually need to go through iterating and trying things on and making mistakes. And it's like that integration piece is where I actually feel the path to date has ended. And it's always gone from here, you've been exposed to this stuff, and now you have to go and perform in it, right? And as a dancer, like it would have been insane to be like, hey, watch this video of Swan Lake, and tomorrow, by the way, you're expected to go and be Odette, right? It would be like impossible. So at least from the, again, very specific lens of Virtual Sapiens, we're a very specific company, very niche, but we are designed to give people a seamless and convenient space where they can actually try on these new behaviors, try on these new frameworks or concepts that they've been given in a safe and private space, and get to the point where they're confident enough to have them really become almost like a second skin in the way that they show up as leaders in the new workplace. I know that's a very specific perspective, but I think that like practice and repetition component of learning is what, to a large extent, we've been missing, specifically within that, like, why aren't these new learnings becoming new? Like, why aren't they being adopted, excuse me?
That's a very specific but also very interesting perspective. In the real world, in the business world, unlike performing arts, we expect people to just perform, right, without often without giving them the support and the tools to succeed. So, great point. You talked, Rachel, about practice and feedback. What role does psychological safety play in building capability, in building lasting capability?
Yeah, I don't mean to dominate, but I will. We just finished a new engagement with a university that uses our platform to support students with their public speaking skills. So the fascinating thing, right? Speaking again about how AI and humans work together, is that they developed a public speaking studio, and the students go in and they rehearse their presentations, and they welcomed the students in and they allowed the students to do it however they felt most comfortable. And the students preferred, it wasn't designed like this, but the students requested, I'd like to practice it a few times with the AI first, and then I'll have the human mentor come in and we can work on it together. And it's because there's this very natural dynamic that humans have peer to peer of being judged, right? And so I think where AI comes in from the perspective of psychological safety in particular is that it gives people a pretty safe space to try something out, to get qualified feedback that's viewed as objective and that is adhering to a very strict framework. And they can do that without having to worry about whether or not that practiced attempt may reflect poorly on them, and that someone may kind of take that vulnerable moment and then use it against them later, when another opportunity comes up. And that's been a really fascinating discovery, because I don't think anyone would have or could have predicted, we certainly couldn't have predicted, that people would have preferred or felt less judged by practicing with our, AI role play partner, that difficult conversation, giving feedback or whatever the case may be, and that they would feel safer in that environment first, at least to the point where they can develop enough of the skill that then they're ready to have an interaction with one of their peers, right? And maybe get more feedback from them.
What an interesting insight. Thank you for sharing. And I know, I mean, how many of us, right, ask AI, our favorite AI questions that maybe we might feel judged or slightly embarrassed, asking another human. I know I have. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm looking at the comments here, and Jason says, Rachel, your specific example is universal. In L&D, we often don't spend enough time in application. And Avital, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, says that's a great insight. And going back to Michelle's earlier comment, Jason says, if we try to implement AI without targeted business outcomes, it becomes a solution looking for a problem. So thank you, Rachel. So Shweta, I want to shift to you next. You often talk about performance as an ecosystem. How should organizations think about AI, skills data, talent marketplaces as the infrastructure for capability, not just as HR tools?
Yeah, absolutely, Malvika. And this actually connects to what Rachel was talking about skills and reinforcement as well. And when I talk about performance as an ecosystem, the reason why I do that is because there are so many interconnected pieces that enable somebody to perform to the best of their ability. And performance is typically what happened yesterday, and capability is what enables us to continue to perform as the organizational context changes. So, capability doesn't come just from content and tools. It comes from us having a sense and feel of whether our organizational system allows us to see where is the capability, how to move it, and how to improve it. So what I mean by it is that as step one, if we do not know, if we can't see capability, we can't effectively deploy it. So skills is a very key ingredient for us in an organizational context to actually, in a dynamic fashion, see who has what skills at what level, what are the adjacent skills that an individual or collective group of people have, and where are the risks forming in the organization. So you see, like if we look at it as an infrastructure element, skills are the key building block, and they are dynamic. They're not just like a dashboard or a report in an organization. So if we look at it from an infrastructure lens, then staffing becomes a guesswork. You have a dynamic skills infrastructure that gives you visibility into who has what and how to redeploy people across the organization. And that uh, visibility helps in the movement of capability in the organization, because if we're just teaching people or training people or giving them content without enough opportunities for application of that knowledge, then again, there's no transfer of learning happening. And then we get into concepts, typical L&D concepts like scrap learning and whatnot. So learning doesn't build capability, applied work does. And again, with a talent marketplace concept, when it becomes, if we look at it not as a mobility platform, talent marketplace equal to mobility platform, not correct, but talent marketplace as infrastructure gives us real dynamic signals, data signals around skills, around employee preferences, around availability, then projects can be staffed based on skills and not just who knows who in the organization or proximity. And then decision makers also have the right signals to assign stretch work to people. And the development then happens through real work versus just leaning purely on content. So skills are not just declared, they are exercised in this context. And what we start seeing that when right people are deployed to the right type of work, capability starts compounding. And the third element that I want to emphasize when we are thinking about performance as an ecosystem and talent marketplace, not as a mobility platform, but an key infrastructure ingredient, is that reinforcement can start happening in the flow of work. You know, just imagine if feedback is not happening 2 months after the piece of work is done, but it is happening dynamically in the flow of work, where technology can help us clean up our work. It gives us proactive prompts to say, hey, have you looked at XYZ? Quality checks are happening inside the workflows. Then the first pass quality of our work improves, rework starts declining, our iteration cycles of sending work for approval and having layers of approval start shrinking, and managers start getting insights in real time so that they can do more targeted and pointed coaching conversations with their people. So now improvement becomes continuous. So that's what I mean when I say these are infrastructure elements. They are table stakes. Without this, we would still be looking at solving the talent development and capability development conversation in pieces and not as a orchestrated system in an organization.
Thank you. So, Shweta, that's a very helpful framework. Have you seen this play out in the real world? So, is there kind of an example that comes to mind, um, so that you can sort of bring this to life for people who are listening? What does it really look like when skills data is used to inform real people decisions like staffing a project, people development, performance, etc.?
Absolutely. So there was this client of mine who we were talking to, the stakeholders were both in HR and the business. And what we found out was that in HR specifically, because they were running engagement surveys and whatnot, one of the things that they found out was that people were leaving the organization because they could not see their career point B in the company. And they were very highly talented people. And HR wanted to solve this problem, but they were looking at it from a typical traditional HR lens. And then we also interviewed some business stakeholders, and this is a company that is a professional services organization. So they are into establishing dynamic teams to serve for client needs ad hoc, depending on the requirement. And what we found out through the business leader conversations was that talent discovery was taking them about 6 weeks to assemble the right team to go and pitch for client work. And looking at both sides of the equation, what we ended up doing for this company was actually building internal talent marketplace with AI as that enabler that helped us parse all the skills from the resume. We built a recommendation engine and helped the organization move from having roles which are like long-term roles that you sit in a role and you're going to spend next 3 to 4 years in that. Yes, that can happen, but also introduce the concept of short-term work assignments and gigs and integrated their learning content into the same talent marketplace that we ended up building. So what happened was, and I didn't mention the third key stakeholder, which was the employee in this mix. So this benefited decisions and choices for all three stakeholders. Now, HR got the full landscape of here are the skills that we have in the organization, here are the skills that are in demand, here are the skills that are fading. So they could start in HR broadly and L&D specifically could start fine tuning their product offering to serve where the demand was. Employees could clearly see the point B in their progression because they could go in, they have their profile, they could keep skills, take out skills, and there were job paths recommendation that the system started showing to them. And of course, the managers who had to assemble the team now could key in just the specs that I'm looking for a UX person who's worked for X client for 3 years, and they had a list of names that would pop up. So at least the talent discovery shortened from 6 weeks to just like 3, 4 hours, and they could have a conversation and assemble the team. So that's how we brought this as an infrastructure layer to life, where we connected the skills data, the employee preference data, the learning data, and the requirements for a hiring manager together to help them find the right talent quickly.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's such a powerful case study. Avital wants to know, so the skills were selected from the employees' CVs from their applications?
Yes, so we did parse the skills from employees' LinkedIn profiles in this client's case. And then when we opened up the portal, every employee got a pre-seeded profile with their skills, their work history, their time availability, and all the other data signals that this company had. And they could go and interact with their profile to say, I want to keep this skill. I do not want to keep this skill in my profile. And depending on the skills that they had, the recommendation engine started feeding. And then this company started growing the talent marketplace. Like if this person applied their UX skills, for example, in context A, there would be a prompt that would go to the manager saying, hey, did you notice this person applying these skills and how would you rate these skills? So there was proficiency data that was also being collected.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. Avital says, wow, and I agree. I worked with one organization a while ago that had something similar, and it was a very, very powerful tool. So thank you, Shweta. Michelle, I want to turn to you next. You've led large-scale HR, tech, and transformation efforts. Where do you think organizations underestimate the operational and change management lift that is required to turn AI investments into real performance outcomes?
So that's a great question. And first and foremost, many organizations don't understand that AI is not a technology challenge, it's a human challenge. The technology already exists, but the hard part is customizing it to deliver your desired outcomes and evolving your culture to one where AI and humans work side by side. From an operational perspective, the most critical element to focus on is redesigning your end-to-end business process. Not just adding AI in and adjusting from there, but really reimagining the entire process. So you want to map out your existing processes and then assess every step to see if AI can automate or expedite the process. If not, that doesn't mean the process won't change, because any one of those steps could now become an input to AI, and then that step would need to be modified so it's fit for use for your AI tool. That's some important things to think about in terms of your business process. You also want to make sure that you're including the people who are actually doing the work today. Not only are they closest to the day-to-day, which means that, of course, they're in the best position to design a better process, but if you involve them from the outset, they'll feel more like the AI shift is happening with them and less like it's happening to them. And that's going to help build excitement and adoption instead of fear. And by creating champions early on, you're activating change management from the very beginning. And that's going to pave the way for a less bumpy road to success. It's also important to meet your employees where they are. So, as I think back on my experience leading HR technology and transformation, HR teams are really good at the people stuff. They're not always that excited about the technology stuff. So, if your main change management strategy is lock a technology team in a room to design the process without any input from HR, train HR on the new tool a couple of weeks before go live, chances are that your HR team is going to layer that tool on top of their existing processes. And in that case, you've lost all opportunity for efficiencies and savings, and your performance gains that you intended really are going to go right out the window. So instead, it's important to understand where your employees are on the change journey and then provide support and resources to help them make that leap to the new operating model. So things like bringing someone in to lead business process mapping by workshopping each end-to-end process with HR. Also potentially creating visuals and step-by-step guides if that's what's needed for your team. But the most important thing is that you really want your employees to feel supported by tools and resources that are going to help them succeed. You don't want them to feel like they've been left out in the cold or left to fend for themselves. And, AI, perhaps more so than any other technology change in our lifetime, is a huge mindset and culture shift. Everyone right now is talking about AI replacing entry level jobs. And that is kind of focused on entry level for the moment. But the truth is that it's really going to change all of our jobs, no matter what level you're at in the organization. And it's not going to replace all of our jobs, but it will change them. So this is not the time to put your head in the sand, right? You want to equip your employees and leaders with the knowledge and tools to get comfortable with AI. Encourage them to experiment and let them know it's okay to fail. Rachel talked about how her platform and approach really creates a safe space, right? Shveta talked about, applied work is really the best way to build those capabilities. So you want people to experiment, let them know it's okay to fail, be curious. And I think what's most important in that regard is that your C-suite leaders need to align on the goals and vision for AI, communicate it to the organization, and let people know that they're expecting curiosity and experimentation. And communicate that often. It's not a one-time email announcement, because the more that you talk about AI and frame it as an opportunity for everyone to eliminate mundane transactional work, have more time for the creative or strategic work they really want to do, the more that you emphasize that, the more your employees are going to get excited about it and the fear will start to ebb. And that is when AI investments really have the potential to turn into performance gains.
Wonderful. I love what you said about don't lock the technology team in a room and have them develop tech for HR without HR's input. I think we need to treat AI specifically as the cross-functional endeavor that it is. And I also loved what you said about appointing champions, right? We are social beings. And from the dawn of time, we've learned from each other. And our ability to learn from each other has literally impacted our ability to survive. And so it's important that we continue to learn from each other as much as we do from senior leaders in our organizations. So thank you. Jason, I'm looking at the comments. Jason says, I think in response to Shweta's earlier comment, love the model of using AI to identify the hidden skills of our people have that let them grow into roles leaders may assume they don't have the skill set to do because they haven't observed them. So, panelists, this is a conversation that we could continue to have for hours, but I have to be the one to remind us that we are limited on time and we are nearing the end of our time here. So, for this last couple minutes before we open it up for Q&A, I would love to do kind of a lightning round style question where each of you share your practical key takeaways that you want our listeners to walk away with. So, one thing that you think leaders can do in the next 90 days to move from learning to real capability. And we're going to make it rapid fire style, and we'll do reverse order to how we started. So, let's go Rachel, Shweta, and then Michelle.
Great question. So I think in our experience working with large and medium-sized companies, the highest levels of success that we found, both in terms of employees and professionals actually using the platform, because we all know that usage of technology is always an issue, and then actual captured progress on the tool has been to spend maybe a little bit more time than you initially are comfortable with, really designing the program itself and those goals and how the activities within the program will match to those goals, right? So even if it's something as simple as performance reviews, right? And giving people a space to practice performance review components before they actually have to give them, right? Making sure that the program is launched with enough time before performance reviews actually hit, but not too early. Making sure that there's like a time limit on the program access, and then making sure that the activities that are actually being done are close enough to the activities that will be performed by them within those real life performance reviews, can, I think, really drive a lot more impact that is measurable and that people will come away with some strong new habits and confidence.
Great. Shweta.
Yeah, I will echo Michelle's sentiment that this is what we are witnessing with AI in the mix today is truly unprecedented. We haven't seen this size, scope, speed, scale of change ever before in human history. And it is truly like that movie title, Everything Everywhere All at Once. So my suggestion to the organizations would be exactly to do what Michelle said, go down into the workflow level, map out the workflows, and then as a collective unit, think about where AI can help augment pieces of work, tasks in that workflow. That you would like to have more time, capacity, more intelligence at your fingertips with so that you can do it better. I also identify parts of that workflow that really give you a headache, that you don't like, that are not adding any value from human judgment perspective. And once you've mapped out, have a clear picture of one workflow against those two A's, augment and adapt, then go into a different room and look at the outcome that you're trying to achieve and understand, with the understanding of the power of intelligence that we have with AI, redesign the workflow end to end. If you have to achieve the same outcome, would you still follow that same process, or would you redesign the whole experience with this intelligence, power of intelligence at your fingertips? Start with one workflow.
Michelle, take us home.
Yeah, so building on both what Rachel and Shweta had to say, I'll bring it back to a more operational lens, but 30,000-foot view. So I would recommend identify one C-suite goal that you think AI can solve. Pull together a cross-functional team to lead the work and have them define the measurable outcome or outcomes that you're after. And then include those outcomes in their performance goals for the year, because the best incentive really is a true incentive. So if you can tie a performance bonus or salary increase to the outcome they're going to achieve with AI, you can bet the team members will be all over building their capability.
Fantastic. If you paid attention to nothing but the last 2 minutes, that was pure gold. I know I learned a lot there. So thank you, panelists, for sharing your wisdom and insights with us. Thank you to everyone who's been bringing your participation and energy to this conversation. And thank you, of course, to Juno Journey and CLIL for putting this event together. If you want to learn more about Juno Journey, please join the community. That's how I met CLIL, through one of the Chicago events. So join the community. If you want to join Women Shaping AI, you can learn more at womenshapingai.com. And before we move into Q&A, a quick reminder on the next session, which will be hosted by Juno Journey on March 3rd, the Playbook Series, AI Assistance in HR and L&D, Practical Use Cases for Busy People Leaders. So be on the lookout for the registration link for that event in CLIL's next email. So with that, I will turn it over to you, CLIL, to take us into Q&A.
Thank you. I'm not sure how many Qs we'll have time for, but that's okay. Jason, I know you had a question, so I'm going to ask you, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Well, thank you, and thank you to the entire panel. And this, I think, you're perfect for this question. One of the things that's been floating around in my head is how disruptive AI is, and I think too often companies look at this as, oh, it's just another tool, but it's not. It's really a disruptive force that changes how we do things. And I think that it is at risk for our frontline employees the way they do their jobs today, but really it's going to kind of change what they do because our frontline employees now are going to be actual leaders of AI agents that are going to be performing the work. So that means we really need to take a hard look at hiring and developing our frontline employees. And with that kind of in mind, what do you see as the biggest barriers to this really seismic cultural shift?
So I can give my 2 cents, and would love to hear from the other panelists. But Jason, you bring up a really good point. It's going to be really important to intentionally design how humans and AI are going to work together, because as you mentioned, teams of the future are going to be made up of AI agents and humans working side by side. And at the beginning, probably managed by humans, but I'm sure at some point AI agents and managers will come into the mix. AI agents as managers will come into the mix. So organizations really need to be thinking about equipping employees, managers, and leaders to work and to lead in an environment made up of these integrated teams. So, what does success look like? How do you motivate and reward performance when you have a hybrid team? How are you upskilling your organization to keep up with the rapid pace of change? And so I think that, the organizations that are already planning for this new workforce are going to be the ones that come out ahead. I don't have answers to those questions, but I think those are some areas that leaders need to be thinking about, and especially HR leaders.
I think one thing that I'll share that I think is really has been really fascinating to me is a lot of this, like, the grunt work or these like lower level mundane tasks that was probably how many of us got started on our careers are actually so foundational to then our ability to manage someone or something, an entity, an AI entity that's going to be doing those same tasks. I'll share that my co-founder, CTO, he has been using Cloud Code a lot. And he's like, it's literally like having like an army of engineers at my fingertips. And I'm so amazed by that. But then I also realized that like he has himself such a wealth of knowledge in the small coding tasks that he can really manage that effectively. So it's almost like I have a question myself with what you said, Jason, in that I think that we have to, while we encourage people to use AI as much as possible and as creatively as possible, we also like should still be encouraging people to do some of the work themselves, because I think if we kind of completely remove that from the next kind of crop of leaders' experience, sorry, I don't know if that's me. Oh, it is. Sorry. Anyways, if we remove that part from people's experience, I think that will kind of be atrophying in an important way that hasn't been the case for any of us before the advent of AI as such a disruptive technology.
Yeah, and what I will add to what Michelle and Rachel said is that, and this I heard somebody say the other day, and it stuck with me, is that future will be either entrepreneurs or employees, and one of them is going to disappear. So this is an opportunity for all of us to start thinking like an entrepreneur, rewire our own mindset so that we can leverage this runway that we have till the last human being is standing. If I don't know when that future is going to come, when machines will take over fully. It might happen in a few years, it might take a few decades, but we know that a different future is coming our way. So this is the time for us to invest in our own development, rethink our own mindset. We can't be always having the renovator mindset to think about incremental improvements. AI gives us the permission and the sandbox, and we don't need anybody's permission and the sandbox in today's time to start thinking like an architect. We have a blank piece of paper. How will we want to operate in this landscape?
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
If anyone else, of course, wants to add anything or any of your input, of course, you're more than welcome to do so. I do think we have time for one more question. If anyone wants to ask anything, you can use the raise hand. And if not, I do have a written question that one of the participants sent me, and then he had to drop off a bit early. So I'm just going to see if anyone wants. Okay. So his question was basically about managers and how, sorry, where was it? Sorry. Okay. How do you hold managers accountable for their team's learning specifically, and to kind of like get them over the experience of fear, of kind of like taking a step back because they're kind of not sure how to take this through, and really helping their team be accountable for how they use AI and how they implement it. So that question was more focused on like working with managers specifically. Anyone wants to take a shot at? I wish he was here to ask it better than me.
I'd say managers apply AI in their daily work and then share their successes and failures with their team members. It creates that psychological safety for both the manager and the employee to feel like, yes, it's okay, it's not perfect. I'm not fully perfect, but I'm going to continue to iterate and improve in this usage of AI as a co-pilot or a co-intelligence that can help augment what I do and what I bring to the table as value.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Shweta. I would build on that. And I really love what you said about managers experimenting and then sharing their successes and their failures, right? It gets back to that transparency, giving permission to experiment. I also think something that can be valuable is asking every employee in the company as they're setting their goals for the year with their manager to identify one process or task that they think AI could potentially take over or automate for them, and then making sure to revisit that goal at the end of the year. So it's not necessarily making the change, but at least thinking through their day to day and holding managers accountable for having those conversations with their employees, I think can help open the door as well.
That's awesome. Any last comments from the panel, either Malvika or Rachel? You want to add on anything?
Good.
Okay.
I guess, sorry, the one thing that I would say is, in general, if you're going to bring on a new AI tool, to just please not like, don't adopt it with no structure or support around it. Again, going back to what I said earlier, I just can't emphasize it enough. We will frequently get companies who are like, great, we can just add this to our digital resource library. And I am like we won't do it. It's just such a waste of everyone's time. So just really being intentional about which AI tools you're using and why, and which goals they're really fueling and supporting, to echo what everyone else has said on the call.
Yes. Amazing. This is great. I'm not sure we actually have enough time for another question, so we'll probably just stop here. I do want to say a very warm thank you to this incredible panel. This was super insightful. We learned so much. Rachel, Michelle, Shweta, and Malvika, thank you. I'll send the summary and the recording and everything to everyone. And of course, the links to the profiles of our speakers so you can stay in touch with them and use their knowledge whenever you need it. This was incredible. And thank you to everyone for taking an hour of your time to join us. It was really interesting to see your comments in the chat. Your questions when you registered really helped us build this entire panel. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you next week with another great session. And thank you again. Have a wonderful day or evening, depending on where you are on the globe.